it seems to me that the balloon expands, doesn't it, into to be the size of the vacuum. So
No, not the size of the vacuum, but it does expand. Now, if you poke a hole on the left side of the balloon, following Newton's third law of motion, the balloon will move right every single time.
yeah, you see the point here. That like I'll just remind you about why do you think you're asking me this question?
Look, I'm not done yet. Now, do you concede that
I'll
fact?
just take you back a second. It's to do with the rocket propulsion in a vacuum,
Right, remember,
isn't it?
crawling
I didn't say anything about that. I only mentioned that issue because
remember, we got to that topic because you were curious of whether or not rockets
and I said,
can fly in space.
there's people out there disproving it. So it seems to be to me you're arguing with me about something that I've just not said.
Actually, in fact, you did say that rockets cannot fly in space because they need oxygen. Actually, the rockets, yes, you did. The rockets that are used in space do not actually use jet engines. They use a chemical reaction.
What I said, John. I remember exactly what I said.
You'll be able to see it on the recording.
Yeah. I don't need to because I remember what I said because I have the same position now as I did 15 minutes ago.
I don't doubt that you have the same position.
Pardon?
I don't doubt that your beliefs have stayed the same. Not for a second. I don't doubt that at all.
Yeah, because I would never say, rocket propulsion can't work in a vacuum because I don't know that. Okay. So you know.
So but you're basically
do you mind if I bring this back up in a few days?
Bring it up whenever you like.
Okay.
So you're calling into question our capacity to discern whether or not these claims are true or not, and so we have no basis for making the assertions we're making. Is that correct?
What? Say that again.
So you're calling into question the evidence and the mechanics that we're discussing. You're saying that we don't have a means of verifying them to be true.
Yeah, we find it difficult to determine whether the type of rocket propulsion, that they're saying that works in space, will work. So,
okay. Do you likewise lack the capacity to confirm the claims that, or evidence, if that's what you want to call it, that this stuff has all been faked?
No, because the way that I can process things is that you're looking at lies, you're looking at body language.
How do you evaluate that?
Well, you explained to me. Because we can go through the videos one by one, but people don't like to do that.
Well, still,
I'll
the question
bring it back
stands.
up in a few days. It's all right.
How are you able to evaluate these things?
It's a kind of probability matrix.
Okay, how's that work?
Well, like that video I just showed you about the guy telling you that all the technology to go to the moon has been lost. Did you see that?
But is that we're talking about a probability? How do you know that what he's telling you is reliable?
He's speaking on behalf of NASA.
Okay, you say NASA lies.
Yeah, it's reliable insofar as So if somebody's determined to be liars and they're lying to me, then it's all down to credibility. Listen,
how do you evaluate the credibility?
If you want to suggest to me that they're lying to me and that the lie is not you've got, do you trust a liar? That's not the point that's being made here. The point that's being made here is that we can determine them to be liars.
How?
Okay? Not that is this fact here that they're lying to us true or false.
I need to know how we determine if they're liars and whatnot. If I'm going to make sound judgments like you're making about these evidences.
Yeah,
I need to know how that works.
You just brought in that fact, though. You just brought in that criterion about NASA. You said NASA are liars. So then we're talking about Then we've got you kind of asking me to put the cart before the horse and prove it before it's proved.
No.
So,
I'm asking.
I'll just take you back again. You were asking how does the probability matrix work? Well, you've got this video of the guy telling you that the technology to go to the moon is lost. Okay. Have you seen that?
Okay, continue.
So that's unlikely. That's highly unlikely There's a lie going on there. Now we'll for the sake of argument, we'll give it something around 70%, right? Now, but because of the way that INFJs work things out, you know, you could, like John will say, well, that could be true. Yeah, it could be true, but it's just fucking very unlikely. You know, you poll like a bunch of people on it. Most people are going to say, yeah, that sounds like
right. You're talking about plausible versus possible. Plausible means it's possible and likely. Possible just means that it can happen, but the likelihood of it doesn't. It's irrelevant.
Yeah. So, you know, you've got that. You've got a bunch of other things that we could bring in, like the augmented reality fail there. You've got the 4K thing, and on and on and on. And so you have all these points of untruth and deceit, and then you're gonna, you know. But if you will say, well, and I will accept, you know, they could have gone to the moon, or they could be doing, and it looks to me like, based on just personal accounts, that they have all kinds of technology that they're not showing us. You know,
I'll agree with that.
So they could be going to the moon, but it's not the Armstrong thing. It's not the you know, they're not going up and down on the ISS. It's not that kind of thing. So it could be something we don't know, but that can't be. What we're determining here is what they're showing us is true or not.
But what I'm trying
how
to
much more plausible is that to the plausibility, I guess, of actually having gone to the moon? Is it more likely that we go back and forth to the ISS, or is it more likely that, you know, we have gone to the moon before?
I don't quite understand the comparison. Do you mean that we've gone to the moon using technology that we're not aware of?
The possibility matrix that you're talking about. Now,
oh yeah, that's all included. The ISS thing is included in that, you know.
But
and
which
the only
one's
thing
more
that we
likely?
don't, which is more likely? Neither
Right.
of them are likely. It's all Satanists.
Okay, so they're not likely in general, but which one is more possible? Which one is more likely? Which one is more reasonable to you to be plausible?
Well, it's easier to you know,
even by a minor degree.
Because they've both been rated as complete lies. You know, I can't tell you, and I don't have the means to investigate which is scientifically more feasible. But I mean, technically, if you were going to the moon, then you could surely that the low Earth orbit thing is, you know, comes off as well possible just because of the rate. But that's not with any relevance to what NASA are capable of, or the technology that they use.
Keep in mind, this whole thing is a question about what you believe as Kestrel. So what do you believe is more likely? The fact that the concept of us going back and forth to the ISS, or is it more likely that we have gone to the moon once? In your belief.
I mean, neither of they've both been rated as false. So
is that your rating, or is it somebody else's?
The possibility
neither is more likely than the other. They're just both completely unlikely, not even plausible.
Well, the plausibility relies on doing it another way, and that is something which, you know, has not been investigated or rated.
Okay, so regardless of how we went to the moon or how we go back and forth to the ISS, which is more possible to you?
It's a different question.
Likely?
That's a completely different question.
No, I'm asking you which is more likely to you.
The
fact that we go,
the likeliness,
regardless of how
result,
we get there or not, is it more likely that we have gone back and forth to the ISS, or in your belief, is it more likely? This is not a trick question. I'm just asking. Is it more likely that we have gone to the ISS or that we have gone to the moon?
No, it's just they're both false. The likeliness of being able to do, oh, you mean in the particular cases that they're telling us?
No, I just mean in your belief. I've been asking, in your belief structure, is it more likely, even by a 0.000000001% chance, that we have gone back and forth to the ISS, or that we have visited the moon once?
Well, like if you were, if I was to tell you that, well, let's say Jeremy's case, You know, is it more likely that he can jump 50 foot or 6 foot?
It
Or
would be
6
more
inches.
likely that he would be able to jump 6 feet.
Can you jump 6 feet, Jeremy?
No, but I can jump 6 inches. And why would you, if I make that claim, why would you believe me?
What?
I can jump 6 inches, but that's just a claim. Why would you believe me when I say that?
I mean, you could get up and show. I don't know if you can jump any distance. You might have some kind of back problem.
Do you have evidence
He
of
could
that?
be a freaking Superman. He could have legs of fucking gigantic proportions.
What's your point?
My point is I'm
No,
trying to get at the basis
point.
for your evaluation of these things. What's the mechanism of evaluation that you're using to make these conclusions and build these convictions? Because
I told you the probability matrix.
that's it.
Well,
But I just asked you about your probability matrix regarding which is more probable, going to the ISS or going to the moon. And according to your matrix, neither are even remotely. They're exactly the same level of improbable.
When it comes down to that level of probability, it's like you're talking a 0 point something, 0.00.
It doesn't matter. Regardless,
if
however many
even
zeros
if
you
it
want to
was.
add to it.
But the thing is, though, that when you've got, it's like saying, well, I've got a room full of magical pink elephants with me right now. You know, what's the probability of that versus someone else having a room full of magical blue elephants? It's irrelevant, really, isn't it?
No, not at all. You have to take into consider the citation, what they mean by magical.
Worth spending their time
I've
on,
seen
really.
many pink elephants. I've seen blue elephants. You can spray paint them. You can.
It's a waste of time.
I mean,
Kestrel, to what extent does your use of a probability matrix depend upon quantitative data?
Well, if quantitative data is provided, then it can be factored in.
Okay, and 6 inches versus 6 feet versus 50 feet, those are quantities. That's quantitative data.
Okay.
But when pressed on it, you brought in ideas like back problems and things like that. You're leaving.
Yeah, because that's not quantitative data. It's just they're just figures. That's not data. That's not data that will be.
You're giving, I think,
that they're just numbers.
quantitative data.
The quantitative data would be: I've seen a picture of someone jumping 50 feet. I've seen a video of someone jumping 60 feet.
Is
And I've
anything
seen a
that
video
comes
of someone jumping. You know,
See, here's the thing.
Quantitative data has to have the evidence, doesn't it? It can't just be numbers.
No. It's
Quantitative implies numbers, quantities, quanta.
Yeah,
Is
but
it
in order to get those
quantifiable?
numbers, you have to have a means of measuring them, and that means of measuring them comes down to, empirical, whether it's empirical.
Okay.
And if you want to say quantitative data, in that way, then yeah, it can be factored in. But
And what I provided was strictly quantities: 6 inches, 6 feet, 50 feet. In your experience, how
but that can't prove anything.
no, it can't, but neither can you.
It's it's not a question of whether it can be proven or not. The question is your belief of quantitative data.
The solipsism again. It just you can go there if you want.
It's regardless of the solipsism.
Cool.
It's your belief of whether or not quantitative data is related to, I don't know the exact word for it, but connotative data. Whether there is a direct link between belief and quantity and a measurement. I guess you can say.
I mean, what you're saying is, hey, if you can be presented with a bunch of numbers and no actual evidence to support them, will that be evidence? I don't think so.
No, but you can plug those numbers into a probability matrix and make an evaluation based on that,
There
whether
you
or not
go.
it's true.
No, you can't.
That's
Then
exactly how it's done.
Then, if you can't, then of what value is a probability matrix? You're basically saying you can't believe its results based on simple quantitative data.
Yeah, no, it's not based on simple quantitative data. The probability matrix is there to assess the probability of something that is the evidence that you have.
Based on what exactly? If it's as simple as 3 figures and you're absent all other data, that should be some of the simplest thing to evaluate with a probability matrix.
Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to base a belief like NASA is lying to us on 3 points of data. That's not.
No, that's much more complicated.
That's many further steps ahead. We've had to come all the way back down to the whole concept of belief versus evidence. But it's that's a bad way to say it. Jeremy, do you have a better way to say that?
Well, we're basically working from a foundational level of logic upward. Like he and I were talking earlier about aliens. Have you ever seen an alien, Kestrel? Do you have evidence that they exist?
I've never seen an alien.
Okay, so if I were to explain something away using aliens did it as the reason, would you think it's reasonable to reject that, not necessarily as false, but something you can't include because you don't know that there's aliens? There's a prerequisite that aliens exist before you can introduce that as an explanation. Would you agree? If there's no aliens, then you can't say aliens did it because that's false.
Yeah, that doesn't mean I'm going to dismiss what somebody's telling me, though.
Perhaps, but what I'm trying to point out is that the way that we're operating is based on foundational information.
So you would dismiss what someone's telling you based on the fact that you've not seen an alien?
Depends on what they're saying.
No, the probability of
How are you making that
a
distinction?
UFO
Creating
is
a probability
greatly
matrix.
reduced because we have not seen aliens. That is part of the probability matrix here.
So if you hadn't seen, an elephant.
Okay, you're saying even in pictures, even in sound, even in
No, I mean, let's say it
there's
was
no
it was
evidence whatsoever to support.
a couple of thousand
that-
years ago when you were a Pict, living in Britain. You haven't seen an elephant.
Mhm.
I've never
Somebody
seen an
comes
elephant.
along and starts telling you. It's
Yeah.
that same kind of thing. You've got to be open-minded to those things.
Okay,
And
but other
create-
people have seen elephants.
Well, you need to. Sorry, what was that, Jeremy?
But other people have seen elephants. Now, granted,
Other
All the people have seen
citable people have seen elephants. Reasonable sources of information. People that can be trusted.
see,
Well,
Kestrel,
not necessarily at that time. That's the
I have
point.
I have
point
no
being
evidence,
made here with the
Kestrel, that
analogy.
you're actually a person. You could be software. You could be a bot that's talking to me. Should I not believe that you exist because I've never seen you?
Solipsism again.
No,
Third
it's-
time.
no. This isn't solipsism. This is a lack of direct epistemic data.
That is essentially solipsism.
No, it isn't.
No, it's not.
You're dodging at this point.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not. Solipsism is, that you're the only thing that exists and everything else.
Yeah,
because
and
it's
that has
just
nothing to do with what
data,
I'm saying.
essentially.
You brought up the elephants.
Solipsism is regardless of proof, regardless
No,
of
let's stick
reasoning,
to the-
regardless of
Right,
everything.
you're saying that you don't want to say it's solipsism. Okay, that's up to you.
It's
But
not. I
the
lack
elephant
direct.
is
I
perfectly
lack
relevant.
epistemic access that you exist. That's all. I've never seen you, but I accept you exist. I can deduce that.
Right, and your point about that is
That when it comes to whether or not you're accepting something in the equation, like aliens or elephants, plug this into your probability matrix. If you've never seen an elephant, you've never seen an alien. Somebody says elephants did it. Another person says aliens did it. Which one is more probable? You've never seen either.
yeah, correct.
So you're going to have to make a deduction. If you're going to pick one or the other, and not just
But
say that they're both equally improbable. If you have to pick one or the other, you're going to have to make a deduction based on the evidence and your experiences. Now, you don't have evidence, but other people...
But
Go ahead.
but if you have no experiences and no evidence, then you have to be open-minded.
Okay, that's a start. But you still have to have a basis for your conviction.
You
Which
don't
is
necessarily have to
a
have a
reliable
conviction.
source of information.
That's being open-minded.
Have you
Don't
ever seen an
necessarily-
elephant, Kestrel?
The issue of whether or not, well, if you want to talk about take your alien thing further, but the analogy of the elephant is perfectly relevant.
Okay,
to-
I'm going to
Yes.
remember you said that. Have you ever seen an elephant?
Yeah, no, the analogy of
Yes.
the elephant is perfectly relevant
Dude,
because
come on.
I like that, Ryan. But
Have you seen an elephant?
No, you can't stop me there because the elephant
No, because
in
you're
the
dodging the
scenario
question.
that I was
It's a simple yes or no.
the elephant in the scenario that I was giving is presupposing that you were
Right,
a pig.
you're thinking
and
that we're
you've
trying
never
to trick
seen
you
an
somehow.
elephant. So it's exactly the same as the alien. The alien and the elephant are one and the same.
You've never seen an elephant before?
The alien are picked again. You're ignoring the scenario the context that I'm giving you, aren't you?
No, I'm trying to walk
You
down
are,
a very
because the elephant
specific
is
line
just
of
as
reasoning.
alien to the modern human as to depict as an alien is to a modern human.
Trying to dodge the question is not going to help your position.
It's not dodging the question; it's providing you with a point that you brought in
an
alien, as if aliens are supposed to be like not believed in on the basis that somebody tells you they've seen an alien, any more than a Pict would, respond to somebody telling them about an elephant.
Have you ever seen an elephant, Kestrel?
That is,
It's a yes or no question.
You're not cognizing what I'm saying.
Dude, Castro, have you seen an elephant? I have not seen an elephant.
Like, that is just such the only reason why you would ask that kind of question is to lead someone somewhere.
Again,
that's
just
correct.
with
That
it.
is absolutely correct. Why don't you want to be led somewhere?
Because I've already said multiple times that the analogy that was being used, you were using alien. I pointed out elephant to a Pict, and therefore they are exactly the same. An elephant is to Pict as an alien is to a modern human.
Okay, it doesn't matter. Have you seen a parrot before?
What relevance is that, John?
We're trying to establish our position, which doesn't seem to be that doesn't want to be on the table, apparently.
No, you started talking about the issue of whether or not you believe that an alien, and I pointed out, well, just because you've not seen it, you'd have to be open-minded.
Okay. Let me see if I can. Okay.
In the same way,
Jeremy and I were talking about aliens. I said that considering the vastness, the sheer unfathomable vastness of space, it would be completely ridiculous to believe that there's no possibility of life, even bacterial life, on any other planet in any other solar system in the entire universe. Now, to believe that aliens have made contact in person with humans is also a bit ridiculous because of just how far away everything is.
But contact with humans requires there to be aliens.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I concede absolutely. There certainly is life somewhere else in the universe, just because based off of what we're based off of, life.
And the reason
There's
that
no
the
way of
elephants
calculating the probability of these things because we don't know whether or not they are. We don't know so many variables. We don't know the where the aliens exist. If they're multidimensional, if they have technology that can reach. I mean, if you're assuming that there should be life anywhere else in the universe, then you have to assume that aliens have had all kinds of time to develop all kinds of technologies.
Absolutely.
But would you accept aliens as an explanation for something if you've never seen one?
In the absence of evidence, you can assume things either way.
Okay, so if you've never seen an elephant, but there's pictures of them, there's video of them, which could be faked, okay? You've got people that have seen them, including myself, that do have epistemic access to the existence of elephants, and somebody wants you to explain a hole in the ground, and they give you two options, aliens or elephants, and it's one or the other rather than going into all kinds of other possibilities. Do you think it's more likely with a probability matrix and other people's epistemic experience that the hole in the ground was produced by an elephant versus an alien?
Good question.
It's very simple.
Yeah, it's also irrelevant, but I mean, you've seen elephants. You're saying that you've seen elephants?
Mm-hmm. At the circus and at the zoo.
You're not seen aliens?
No, I haven't.
Well, obviously you could assume that the best explanation is the elephant.
Bang. Why? Why would you accept that? You just accepted it.
Because it's not really of that level of importance. That if somebody tells you it's that, because you can also change your opinion.
So basically, if something contradicts your position on something, it's irrelevant.
If something contradicts you, well, what relevance does that statement have to the question?
This is basic logic.
You can say that, but it's basic enough for you to explain right now in a line of reasoning. Go.
The line of reasoning I've already been through. It took me 10 minutes with plenty of interruptions.
No, the relevance of the statement that you just said to the question that which I just answered.
Well, the relevance is that we're using building blocks of basic physics, which you may or may not accept, thermodynamics and things like that. And these are things that we use to establish our.
No, you're broadening the goalpost. You're going back to an explanation of logic. You're not explaining the statement that you just gave. Right. So let's go back a few steps. Let's
Think
just
of
go
the
back
hierarchy
to the question.
Okay.
Right, we'll get there, Jeremy. Go. Let's go back to the question that you just asked about the elephant. Right. So, whether somebody says, ask the question again.
The question about whether or not an alien or an elephant is the more likely cause of an object or an event or a phenomenon.
Yeah, so you've got no evidence that the aliens did it, and you know that elephants are about. But then again, depending on where the hole is, you may dismiss elephants as well and just say it was something else.
Hold on, no. Let's go back to the question like you wanted us to do. Can you restate the question the way you want it addressed?
No, you're the one with the question, so you ask it the way that you were leading
But you
somewhere.
clearly want a specific answer for it.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I mean, what
here's
is
the question: which is the more likely cause
Your
of?
question. It's your question. You have to create the bounds for your question.
I'm doing it right now. There's a phenomenon, an evidence, something out there in the world, and somebody introduces two possibilities, and you have to choose between one or the other. It doesn't mean you know which one is correct. It doesn't mean that there aren't others, but you're given two options: aliens or an elephant. Okay, and you have no evidence.
That would be a contrived false scenario, wouldn't it? Because if there was a hole, and somebody says aliens or elephants, then
Perhaps
the idea that you only ever have two.
It's Occam's razor.
That you only ever have two possibilities for the causation of some phenomenon is.
But I just qualified that by saying that there could be other possibilities. It could be something else. You're not saying that an elephant did this. You're not saying an alien did this. What you're having to do is make a determination as to which is the more likely of the two.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you follow?
And this is Occam's razor. What is the simplest answer to that question? It's most likely going to be an elephant.
John, just let Jeremy carry on, would you?
All right, sorry.
I was done. Those are the parameters. You're not saying that you know.
So
go ahead.
You may have somewhere like a 5% chance that it's an elephant. But in that case, you've got a 5% chance that it's an elephant, 0.000000001% chance that it was aliens.
Okay, you're following.
Okay.
So the elephant is the answer.
Right. Doesn't mean it's the correct answer or anywhere near the correct answer.
And I said that there could be other possibilities, but you're given two options, and you have to decide which one is the more likely between the two.
And it's almost like somebody's come along and asked an irrelevant question because if
No.
So
quantum mechanics
it's
is all
somewhat
entirely
absurd as well to put somebody in that scenario. It has an element of stupidity.
Quantum mechanics, as far as we understand it right now, is almost entirely based off of that concept right there. It's all about what is most likely to happen. Now, that controls our entire universe. Okay? So, you can say it's reasonable to say that is a solid foundation of logic. What is more possible? What is more likely?
It's not a solid foundation of outcome.
It's not a question about outcome. It's a question about what is more likely
from the
to
scenario
happen.
that you're in.
The outcome is relevant to the question of possibility.
And the context here is a probability matrix.
Not the reality.
But we're still dealing with probability matrix. That's what I seek to understand here. And I'm giving examples.
But the probability matrix isn't basing something on unreality. It's basing something on an either-or scenario of whether somebody is lying or not.
But that's what you use, right?
Whether somebody is lying or not, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So how is it stupid to use aliens and elephants as an example, as an either-or scenario? That seems like a perfectly reasonable.
Detached from the empirical.
Okay.
If you were to make it more of, you've got a scenario where there's a hole and you've got some guy giving you photographs of the elephant digging it and video of the elephant digging it, and you can see elephants around and about, and you've got some guy showing you images of a UFO beaming it in, then it's a more corollary question.
Okay, but that goes beyond the factors that I introduced.
Yeah, but it's more reflective of the probability matrix. You're talking about a thought experiment that detaches probability from reality.
No, he's giving you an exact analogy of what a probability matrix is. He's defining it for you.
He's describing it as it detaches from reality. It is that, but then it's like saying
Let me ask, what part of that is not realistic?
Well, because the elephant option and the alien option are detached. There's no evidentiary element to it.
But he's not trying to provide evidence for it. He's just asking you, based off of your experience and your knowledge, what is more likely.
Well, I know that's how that is. I'm sorry, go on.
No, I was done. It's just based off of what you know at the moment. What is a more likely scenario? Now, you can ask the question of whether it's an elephant or a zebra. It doesn't matter. Those are both Earth-based animals. But in that question, say there's a 20-foot wide hole in the ground, it maybe a few feet deep. What do you think would be more likely, the zebra or the elephant?
Yeah, and when you detach, you see, the question as it was asked is of sort of it takes the tool of the probability matrix and renders it slightly useless by putting it in a scenario where it's of no use. You see, what the tool that you would need to use then in that scenario is start investigating whether there's any elephants locally, whether elephants can dig that kind of a hole. That's what happens then when you're lacking the data points.
Yeah, well, that's a reasonable thing to do when you're asked the question, if you have a moment to collect evidence. The question he's asking you, though, is based off of your evidence as of right that second. What do you think would be more likely, the elephant or the alien? Or in my case,
I got there. Yeah, I got there.
That's all he's trying to say, is that's what a probability matrix is. Now, of course, reasonably speaking, you would gather as much evidence as you possibly could.
Yeah, and I was pointing to the fact, though, that it's like taking a hammer, which you can use for perfectly, and saying, right, I'll throw this hammer into the sky, and it's going to fly. There's tools for different scenarios.
Yeah, and what was it? I can't remember the exact name of it, but there still is a possibility that the hammer will fly. It's just incredibly unfathomably unlikely.
If you want to spend time thinking that the hammer's going to fly, that's cool.
And the capacity to jump 6 inches versus 6 feet versus 50 feet is very similar.
Okay, I'd say that we're generally pretty comfortable with what the probability matrix is, right? We're all on the same page, I think.
I think I am.
Yeah, well, I'm the one that's using it.
Okay. So we went back. Okay, so logic. Now we got to go back to probabilities. Because Jeremy, we had to break it down to logic first to get from where to logic. I forgot which one. We're at like step number 13 here.
I don't know. It's parried and jousted in so many different ways.
Fuck, I'm too tired for this argument. Hold on a second.
See, what I'm gathering, though, is that the logic tools that we use to evaluate claims is rejected by Kestrel.
Oh, okay, so basic math then, right? Physics? We can work our way up to that?
Well, it's not a matter of math because it's a mental thing. It's a mental construct. I have a probability matrix in my head, and it's collecting the data, and that's how it works. It is I am the probability matrix.
Wherever the probability matrix is located, it's still a tangible. Well, I don't know if tangible is the right word, but it can be expressed. It can be communicated.
Well,
right. Whether it's written down, whether it's spoken to us, whether it's whatever, it can be communicated.
Yeah, and it's perceptions. So, and then it relies on other probability matrices. So
evidence. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we can work our way back. So we have logic down, which means that we can get math down pretty easily. Okay, physics. We've already covered Newton's third law of motion, right? Opposite reaction.
We've
opposite
covered
action.
it.
Okay.
But
I've never disagreed with any of that.
Okay, so say just for sake of argument, if we poke a hole in a balloon on the left side in a vacuum, it will fly the opposite direction. Correct? Yeah, that's my brother. Yeah.
Or avoid the balloon. Make it something like a stainless steel cylinder, so the expansion and all of that can't be brought into the mix.
A valve is.
I don't know where you're going with this. I don't know where you're going with this. I've not said that that the rocket propulsion in a vacuum was impossible.
Remember, we've
that
had
was
to
something
break
that Jeremy
it
brought
down
up.
into separate parts to get back to the so that we can build our logic to make it understood, I guess you can say.
Or at least establish what is and is not permissible.
I just have to take it back though. The propulsion thing, I've not disputed really.
Okay,
I just
forget that then. Okay, so it is reasonable to say that we can send rockets into space and shoot rockets in a direction. It doesn't matter what the fuck direction it is, and it doesn't. Who cares if it comes back or it orbits? It doesn't matter. It just a rocket can be shot in space.
Fireworks, yeah, can work, yeah.
Okay, so that's great. That's awesome. What was the other one? Thermodynamics, entropy. Was that what you were getting at? Second law, Jeremy?
Well, you talking about when I was talking about how long it takes for somebody to freeze in a vacuum?
Yeah.
What I was actually doing was trying to evaluate whether or not he was using these principles in the
logic.
context of evaluating claims.
Okay. Fuck, I'm too tired for this shit.
Because a lot of people would say if I asked them how long it would take somebody to freeze, they might say something like 30 seconds.
6 minutes, right?
It's hours. Because the heat has to be radiated. There's nothing to conduct.
Oh, you would take like 6 minutes to die, but then to actually completely freeze.
To freeze. And the movies demonstrate something very different.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just looking into whether or not he had, the basis of understanding of those principles to see what his tool set is.
Well, I would just tell you, though, that that's not the information that NASA are telling you when it comes to whether something freezes in space or not. They tell you that it freezes straight away.
I'm not evaluating.
Sometimes it evaporates, sometimes I can find you the statements if you'd like.
I'm not evaluating NASA's claims. I'm evaluating your capacity to evaluate them.
Well, I just, I can only go off what they tell me, and they don't show you any evidence of that. So I'm the one that's disbelieving that. I'm starting off with skepticism about NASA's claims and what goes on in space. And as I've just said,
skepticism is a good start.
I don't have evidence of what they're doing. And by the way, you don't have evidence of how stuff freezes or does whatever in space either.
No, but we do have it in a vacuum, which means that we can reasonably assume that it will work the same in space. Based off of logic, reasonable assumptions.
And this is where the elephant and the alien becomes relevant, because if you've never seen an elephant, I've never been to space, we're still going to have to make deductions based on the information that we have in our experiences. So if you have nothing and nobody that can come forward and claim that there's an alien versus people being able to come forth and claim and demonstrate, me, for instance, I've seen an elephant. I've never seen an alien. So the elephant is the more likely if whittled down to those two possibilities. And that's
How's that relevant?
It's relevant because that's a tool used to evaluate a claim.
Mm,
Just like the laws
how's
of
it relevant
thermodynamics.
to the question of the radiation and NASA issue?
Because the radiation is another one of those things that, like you point out, I've never been to space, have I? I've never been able to test that firsthand, have I? But these are physics principles that have been used for hundreds of years now and are very well established, even though I don't have direct
Like 100 years.
experimental evidence of them. That doesn't mean that I have to reject them outright. And in particular, when they contradict my convictions. Because what I'm seeing and hearing a lot of here is anytime anything comes up that might contradict your convictions about something, it gets rejected out of hand, or other elements are brought in to obfuscate that deduction.
No, because anytime you've mentioned these things, though, that's not the realm that I'm working in,
Obviously.
because we've got all this other evidence.
But how do you evaluate that evidence? What are your tools? Saying probability matrix is insufficient. I want specific tools you use to evaluate claims like
Specific
I won't
sources.
I won't even bring up the whether or not rocket propulsion works in space anymore, because that's obviously falling on deaf ears.
I would say
on
it's-
deaf ears. You need to
it's
just
a touchy
acknowledge that
subject. It's not that it's
that was irrelevant, and that was something that you brought up.
we moved past it because we conceded that yes, it can actually happen. We can fly a rocket in space and whatever the fuck.
Yeah. No reason to bring it up again.
The rest of the argument doesn't even fucking matter in that case when it comes to rocket propulsion.
Well, I don't know whether you can fly a rocket into space.
Okay,
And this-
so but if we got a rocket into space, you concede that it would work in space.
No, because the effect.
There we go.
Yeah, because look, again, the specific mechanism for the rocket propulsion that you're talking about. You've not seen it working in a vacuum. Okay, just get that into your head, will you? You've not,
We've
in
tested it
theory.
in vacuums. That's how we got it in the first place.
No, you don't. You've not tested it in vacuums.
Okay, so we're going to the question of
The
Jeremy.
Nazis are saying
What
this.
sources-
Richard Nixon tested it in vacuums.
Right. What sources
them.
are reasonable to?
I have to go. I've got to tidy up. I've got people coming around, so I have to go.
Okay.
All right, man. You take it easy.
But we can. You can feel free to look at the Raw channel if you like, and pick the
Yeah,
debate
no
up wherever you like in the future. I'm more than happy.
And
Return
no hard
to it.
feelings. I hope. I mean, I'm
No hard
really
feelings
not trying
whatsoever. No.
okay. Cool. All right, man.
I've only had advancement in my life when debating things on
Oh, that's
forcefully.
cool. Yeah, I just the last thing I want to do is make someone dislike me for some reason just because our beliefs are different. So I certainly don't want to.
Yeah, I wouldn't even like that. Just because people believe different things. No way.
We're just
You
talking.
too, Jeremy. Kiss, kiss.
You too. Have a great day.
I'm gonna stay in the room. I'll be listening, but I've got to
Okay.
tidy up and shit like that. So.
Yeah, I always find it interesting. I mean, not to say that Kestrel is like a Bible thumper or anything, nothing like that. I wish it were easier to break through that wall of disbelief when you like make a very reasonable and direct question to their beliefs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just so difficult.
And when it comes to a lot of these kind of things that I do have experience with, most of the time I walk away with an I don't know. 9/11,
Yeah.
the specifics, I don't
You know
know.
what? Yeah, that's about as far as I've ever been able to go.
And
I
that's
mean,
very
there are
different.
very few people that I have been able to reasonably argue with and concede that I was right.
Ultimately, my whole agenda there was to find out what is the reasoning process involved in evaluating the likelihood of somebody's counterclaim to NASA's assertion, say that we landed on the moon or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter what the scenario is. What matters is what is the evaluative process. That's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah.
And
And I was trying to get more to the point of which source is more reliable.
and
You
that
know?
can be very difficult. Ultimately, the faith, regardless. And that's the only reason solipsism even came up, is because if you're going to evade every line of reasoning that could be seen as objective or as objective as possible, ultimately that's what you're promoting. And
Yeah.
I wasn't, asserting that
Not
anybody
believe
was.
anything until you see it with your own eyes, right?
Can't believe what you see with your own eyes in that case. Which is why the ISS and optics came up.
Yeah. In person.
Yeah,
You must
with
be
your
present.
with your own eyes. And if one follows that all the way down, then you can get into things like schizophrenia, and you can get into hallucinations and things,
Yeah.
and you can jerk the rug under anybody's claim using techniques like that. But that's very different than explaining one's own evaluative processes when coming to those conclusions. And
Yeah.
when you're in a conspiracy theory, you're swamped in information that you can't properly evaluate.
Disinformation. Yeah. And that's the thing. Sorry, that was my girlfriend. She asked me how it was going. I told her we were having a debate about the validity of moon landing and aliens and ISS and all that. Yeah, I mean, oh man, you could almost question what is really open-minded thinking in that case, because I mean, like, I lost my
Well,
train of thought. Anyway,
for one, being selectively open-minded isn't really being open-minded.
that's not open-minded. Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm willing to bet there's a number of specific instances where he and I probably agree on certain, if you even want to call them conspiracy theories.
Oh yeah, me too. Well, like the whole pancake thing of 9/11. Yeah, that does not happen without demolition. But you could also say that, considering the damage to the building and what could possibly happen to other buildings, maybe they planned it because of that, or maybe they had a last resort method that says, okay, this building is going to, fall down and damage potentially much more people. We need to demo it. You can even go that far. But certainly, there's something different. Something that's not quite honest about 9/11, and especially the airplane into the Pentagon.
And a much crisper, cleaner subject to deal with when it comes to that is Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma City?
Yeah, the Oklahoma City bombing. It's not as fraught with disinformation as 9/11 is.
Whoa, please tell me more information about that.
Well, how familiar are you with that incident?
Not at all. Not that I think. I'm not sure I know.
Well, there were news reports on the morning of that incident where the bomb squad was removing unexploded devices. And there's evidence on the support columns of the building that show shape charge damage. Now, being fair, the BATF had an office on one of the top floors where they stored explosives. So, rather than say, well, look, here's the news talking about them bringing unexploded devices out of the wreckage and saying, well, that's proof that there was demolitions, it's also possible that what they were referring to was what was stored in the BATF office.
Yeah, it could have been ordnance.
Yeah, exactly. And so being fair to the situation, I have to throw that out there. But there's a lot of, for instance, there's evidence that, I'll tell you one thing, is why wasn't any of the surrounding buildings surveillance camera footage used in the court case against McVeigh? If
Good
you've got
question.
footage of him driving up in a truck, stepping out by himself, walking away, and that truck blowing up and blowing the face off that building, and that's it, that seems, video evidence is pretty good.
Yeah.
So
No.
if you've got footage,
There's also,
however...
There's also what method they use to retrieve that information. I mean, if chain of evidence was bad, then they would have to exclude it. Did they exclude it purposefully,
as I
or
understand it.
was it just not even brought up?
That I don't know. But if the story is that he acted alone, and the video evidence shows otherwise, which eyewitnesses indicated is the case, that there were more people
so
there.
there is video evidence?
Well, there were cameras from adjacent buildings all over the place that were up and down the street, Fifth and Harvey.
Oh, so there's proof that he was, but they just didn't use it in court.
There's evidently video footage of the crime scene during the event that was not used.
Interesting.
Because, I mean, if I'm a prosecutor, I'm going to introduce 19 videos of this guy getting out of the truck by himself, unless it undermines my case, because there's other people in the truck with him.
Or unless you were required to suppress that evidence due to a fault of your own or fault of the state.
Could be. Another thing that's very interesting is that the people in the, I think it was the BATF, were tipped off not to come to work that morning.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. And the reason that I bring up OKC versus 9/11 is when you start looking into 9/11, you start running into particle beam weapons and holograms and all kinds of stuff that becomes very difficult to differentiate from fact. It's a smoke-filled room. There's too much crap. You can't distinguish fact from fiction. But Oklahoma City was pre-internet, and it's a cleaner subject to investigate in that regard.
Okay.
Doesn't mean I know what happened. Just that you're not. It's not a room filled with as nearly as much garbage as 9/11 is like the most disinfoed thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. Kestrel, it's not a question of dismissing it or not. It's a question of the likelihood. What's the possibility of using a particle beam weapon in 9/11 versus, explosives, ordnance? Or you can say thermite.
I've still not seen a good explanation of how an airliner that's known to be hijacked for a long period of time can invade DC airspace and hit the Pentagon of any building.
Yes, yeah.
That's a good question. Doesn't mean I have an answer. It's just a good question.
Do you think that it's even worth to think about it? Because you'll never find strong evidence from either side. Even the case where you were speaking about the workers being tipped off to not going to work.
I don't think
that's really true.
I don't think it's worth it to try and get at an answer, because I don't think we can. But I think it is worth it as a mental exercise.
Yeah, you're right. But it's frustrating how it's impossible to get an answer from something that
is that significant.
Really had an impact. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look at what that has triggered. But there's the people that have a strong conviction that they know the details of what happened. To me, look very similar to the people who maintain the official story. And for me, I walk away with, man, I don't know. I don't buy the official story, but I cannot claim to know all the details and the ins and outs of what happened. The World Trade Center bombing in '93 has some data behind it, where the FBI supplied the munitions to the people and were in contact with an Egyptian general who recorded the conversations. Okay, we've got that.
Yep.
But no, at the end of the day, I look at that kind of shit as like weather. I have no impact on a hurricane any more than I do what the government or whomever is going to do to trick us. At best, it's a mental exercise. It's like playing chess and getting good at chess, but chess isn't going to save your life.
Exactly. Yep. Jeremy,
yeah, but from
I need to meet you in real life eventually. I'd like to just shake your hand.
the important questions that Kestrel asks, at least for me, are the space questions, because it has a lot of impact on the things that I already know, or the things I think I know. It's like a basis of some of my knowledge. And also
What questions in particular regarding space?
No, because regarding NASA's validity.
I'm sorry, masses validity? Can you type that?
Yeah, the data they bring in.
For just space in general, or for like going to the moon? Like I'm asking what in
space in
particular.
general.
That's a
Asking
big topic.
Yeah, because putting in question if either they went or not to the moon makes me question other things.
Well, that's a specific topic, the moon landing. Space in general is it's bigger than everything regarding Earth. I mean, like, think of all the things you can think about in Earth, and now multiply that by an unfathomable number. I mean, like, it's that question is inherently, you'd have to explain the meaning of the universe just to get to that point.
I think about that a lot.
Right.
But that's the thing. If I'm looking for sources that try to explain the phenomena and how things work outside of a realm of outside things I'm able to explore. I guess I have to get data from somewhere.
I just gotta brush my teeth, so just keep talking.
So I have to get data from somewhere, and getting data from space, it's very hard because there's a limited number of people looking into it. So if you start to question the validity of those entities, those limited number of entities exploring space, I get a little bit lost.
Does it make you uncomfortable how much faith you have to put into that?
It makes me uncomfortable how much faith I've put before into that.
Yeah.
It makes me disappointed at myself for not questioning enough. Because I normally I have sources that I trust, and I'm very, very careful with my sources. And I let NASA escape my eye.
Well, NASA's an interesting one because so much centers around it. My take on NASA is that it was essentially a very, very, how would I phrase this? It was an opportune and convincing way to finance weapons development by proxy. I mean, you talk about ICBMs, well, that's NASA tech.
Yes, everything, yes.
Yeah. So, the financing that went into NASA was almost like a roundabout way to finance weapons development, but by selling it as space exploration. And the whole UFO thing, Area 51 and Blue Book, looked like a very good way of discrediting people that were witness to weapons testing. So it's almost a cynical way to approach it, but it seems to be a reasonable approach.
Yeah, because I'm Portuguese. I've studied. I love science. I've studied geology for 2 years, and it's not that Portugal is like a village, but we're a little bit outside from those conspiracy, that mentality that there's a big thing controlling everybody. There's because here that doesn't happen, or at least if it has some impact, it's not visible in any way. We don't see the government acting like that, and any entity acting like that.
You have a central bank?
It's very strange. What?
Do you have a central bank?
No, we have banks that belong to the government or partly to the government, and private banks. we have some stronger than the others, but there's not a big bank, just the most secure.
Is Portugal part of the Eurozone?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's your central bank.
Sim. Oh, okay. Yeah, internationally we have the central bank. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
I just
That could be argued as part of a, I don't know, conspiracy